Here we go. I'm back, part 9. Yeah, sorry I didn't upload. I've been busy doing nothing, pretty much. So, I don't know. Just sometimes you don't really feel motivated to sit in your garage and read. But I'm back. We're back in this. So this is chapter 9 or part 9 or whatever the hell we're calling it. So this is Team Mom, Dad, and Sims, an emotional roller coaster. And this right here, this is from International Snowboard Magazine. This was my checkout. They used to do these checkout things, and this is it was called Young and the Fearless. And so there's a shot of me doing a frontside air at this would be the New England Cup competition that was at Tenny Mountain 3 or 4 years after that very first Tenny Mountain Snowboard Bash. So this was like a return, like a homecoming to Tenny Mountain, where we all met back up and did an actual contest there, and people knew how to snowboard. The pipe wasn't really that much better, but it was better. So, well, I'll just read this to you since it's we're talking about this right here. So, in this checkout, it says, what's your full name? It's Brant Todd Richards. Birth date, December 28th, 1969. I was born in, it says Holden, Massachusetts, but I don't think that's right. I think I was born in Worcester. My mother's maiden name is Farley. And this was the Stick It In Your Ear. This is what you wanted to listen to for music. And I've got Bad Brains, Sailing On, The Cult, Nirvana, and Public Enemy, My Uzi Weighs a Ton. Remind you, this is in 1990, 1989, maybe, I don't know. Snowboarder Hall of Fame, Tim Wendell, Jason Ford, and Tucker Franzen. Dork Patrol, this is what I didn't like on the hill. Dayglow, Copers on skate trucks, and people who don't use turn signals. I still can't stand people who don't use turn signals. This is Dream Day. And I said, waking up with 2 feet of fresh snow at Squaw Valley, then going riding with Chris Swires, Tucker Franzen, and Chris Roach, going nuts and flying off everything. And that would still be awesome. And I saw a picture of Squaw from 2 days ago. It hasn't been ridden in, 3 weeks now? And just the way the snow has fallen because it hasn't been hammered by people. It looks so good there right now, my God. Video Orgy. These are movies that you like. And I said Tales from the Dark Side, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. 3 gems that you guys can watch right now during this time of international stay at home and do nothing. And then it's King for a Day is another category. Like, what would you do if you could change the world? If I was king for just one day. Psychedelic Furs, I think. I think it was Psychedelic Furs. Anyway. I'd like to change a lot of attitudes. I'd like to see people wake up one day and have more acceptance of new ideas. Wow. Half pipe yo is what's good about pipes. And I said, perfect trannies with a foot of vert, spines, and all pipes built to the same specs, which basically all 3 of those came true. Half pipe no. Cartwheel flips, that was because I couldn't do J-tears for some reason. Teeny amounts of flat bottom and rock hard pipes. And I still hate all those things to this day. So there's it, my Young and the Fearless. That was a pretty freaking big deal for me when that came out. Real big deal. It was kind of like your first you made it moment. As far as amateur / pro, I guess it was pro. I was pro because I was 18, so it was pro. Anyway, here we go. Team Mom, Dad, and Sims, emotional roller coaster. After I placed 4th in the US Open, Sims agreed to pay my travel expenses in full. Wow, that was a big deal because at this point, Mom and Dad were flipping the bill big time. The very next day, they flew me out to Breckenridge for the TDK World Snowboarding Championship. There was no time to be nervous. It was all just exciting and unbelievable. I felt like I was in a dream. It did, because it was like I went from, I wasn't getting paid for anything really. I would have to get myself everywhere, and then they would kind of take care of me while I was there. I could sneak into the team dinners, and they would kind of put me up, but it wasn't they weren't I don't know. It wasn't like I was included in the travel budget, but then all of a sudden everything changed after I got 4th at the Open that year. Sims rented a big house in a neighborhood at the edge of Breck called Warriors Mark, where a lot of locals lived. After an entire winter of traveling together, we were starting to feel like an extended family. But there was always some kind of scandal brewing, and it usually involved Sean Palmer, Chris Roach, or Mike Rankwit. Those guys are trouble, man. Best of times. Our first night there, Roach met a girl while he was walking back from the Breckenridge Brewery. He must have made quite an impact on this pedestrian because she immediately returned to the house with him. When he realized I was already asleep in the room that we were sharing, Roach, ever the gentleman, humped the girl in the hallway. And they both came into the bed and passed out later. The next morning, I was at the kitchen table with the rest of the team eating breakfast when this strange girl walked in with messed up hair and her out clothes on. She looked around, squeaked a timid "what's up," and then did the walk of shame right out the front door. We all looked at each other like, who the hell was that? The second the door slammed, Roach sauntered into the kitchen, looking refreshed, and fixed himself a bowl of cereal. He tried to maintain a straight face, but a grin betrayed him, and eventually we all got the story out of him. For me, life with the team on the road was just like a college experience I didn't have. A constant party, and it just got more and more insane as everything went down on the snow. So this is, when we were staying in Breck at that point, it was, there was probably 8 or 9 of us, plus the team manager, Mickey, in this house just outside of Breck. Like, it was kind of walking distance, kind of not walking distance. I guess it was walking distance. It wasn't too far in Warriors Mark. But yeah, so this is at the time in Breckenridge where, like, if you live in Breck, you know, like, Biff America, like, this guy Biff had a public access show that was like kind of like a talk show, and he would have everybody on, and he had the whole Sims team on, and myself and Palmer dressed up in his full like Palmer gear, and it was just crazy. And I think that night that Roach hooked up with that girl, maybe that was a different time. I know at some point Roach threw a maybe through a pool cue, or Rankwit, or Rankwit, Palmer, or Roach. It's pretty good chance that either one of those 3 guys did this, through an 8-ball through the front window of the Breckenridge Brewery. Something like that. I don't know if it was at this contest. It might have been a different, like a world championship at Breck. I don't know. At any rate, it was pretty insane roaming around with those guys, coming from like East Coast where you only saw these guys in the magazines to now you're like rooming with them, and you know, you're eating dinner with them every night, and you just get to smell everyone's BO. It's a big deal. At Breck that year, the extracurricular activities were fun, but the event was a flop. I couldn't get my game face on, and I fell during the finals of the second biggest contest of the year. I took an unlucky 13th place in the pipe and was certain that Sims was going to drop me. Mickey, however, gave me a cup as half full response, saying, "You almost made the top 10. At the awards ceremony, a local pro named Sean Farmer. So this is when Farm was just kind of getting his feet out in front of him. A local pro named Sean Farmer stole the show. He was one of the sport's strongest freeriders, attacking any terrain, including bar tabs, with fearless style. The lines he rode were death-defying and scary. Even the best riders were wary and often said, "Don't follow Farm." Off the mountain, he was known to jump through windows and run through sliding glass doors just for the entertainment value alone. But on this occasion, he performed a snowboard rap song. And I can't really remember the lyrics, but it had everyone rolling. And this was, it was like the awards ceremony that night was at the Beaver Run, the big Beaver Run hotel thing. And Farm, like after they had done all the awards and all that bullshit, like Farm just grabbed the mic and just started freestyling. And I think some of this rap kind of turned into "I did it my way, this is my resume." Like there was like similar lyrics in there, like something, 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 "Here comes Ranky. Is he going forward or is he going fakey?" Like I remember that line big time. I loved the half pipe and didn't understand people's attraction to riding powder. I did. All I wanted to do was ride pipe at that point. On these contest trips, the pros would go and ride POW when it snowed, and I'd hike the pipe. And I'd always had it to myself on those days. And during these solo sessions, I'd get into my training mindset, picking one or two tricks to do over and over again until I could practically do it with my eyes closed. Then I'd pick another. I lived for riding days before and after the events. The resorts didn't really maintain the pipes very well for the general public, but they were usually the best just before and just after contests. If it wasn't snowing, the pipe would be packed with pros and photographers. These practice and photo sessions were electric. The energy was all positive, no contest jitters and no judges to impress, so no one held back. And this is where I really progressed. It's also where like the progression of snowboarding happened in general. In particular, do I get at it in here? No. Okay, no. So this is like obviously the before and afters of the contest. Like everyone would start going crazy. And at this particular contest is where this trick tip video called 20 Tricks was filmed. And it's, if you can go online, you can find it. It's on YouTube. But it was like a whole bunch of different people doing tricks in that Breckenridge pipe right after this event. And I think Craig Kelly did frontside gay twist. Rankwit did fakie to fakie 360s out of the bottom of the pipe, which at that point was like, was kind of unheard of. Let's see what else. Craig did backside 360 to frontside gay twist in the pipe, and that was like a pretty insane line. I think he also did maybe frontside 540s or something like that. I think Tim Wendell did the Dew plant, which was like a hand plant and drank Mountain Dew. I believe that happened. George Pappas did like the, I don't know, the mashed potato or something like that. But there was a whole bunch of stuff that went down at this particular session. And I think the practice sessions back in the day and the day after the contest back in the day, because I don't think it doesn't really happen. Everyone just leaves town now after the pipe comps. But back in those days, it was like, it was, you know, all the pressure in the world is off. You know, there's no one judging you. Now it's all about inventing new tricks because shit was being invented all the time, as I will get to right now. These practice and photo sessions were electric. The energy was all positive. There was no contest jitters and no judges to impress, so nobody held back. That was where I really progressed. Riding with people who were better than me was my best motivation. And I kept mental notes on the tricks I saw and I heard about, which was a crossover habit from skating. During the post-contest session at Breck, for example, and the search for my next money trick, I was practicing doing fakie 360s into methods. And I'd tweak them out like Palmer did his airs. And I even tried to do a few frontside 540s, which I failed at miserably, but I kept on pushing. Later that day during that session, I watched Tucker Franzen do the first ever fakie to forward 720 in a half pipe. That's true, Tucker did the very first fakie to forward 720 in the pipe. At that time, not many riders could pull off a backside 540. Even fewer did frontside 540s, and only a handful grabbed them. So Tucker's 720 was groundbreaking. I don't think anyone really saw it except me, and I kept quiet about it because I thought it was this new secret weapon. Years later, I confessed to Tucker about that day, and he remembered the same moment and said he knew he'd done something new, but he didn't want to claim it, which says an awful lot about Tucker. And Tuck, if you're watching this, you know, you're the shit. Tucker Franzen is a very, he's a pretty humble dude, except when he's fucking with you, then he's not really that humble. To Canada again. Oh, here's a, this is from A Basin. This is from the contest where I shit my pants in the start gate. That was actually the day that I was getting the sun poisoning, which led to the pants shitting incident, which I think we get to later in this book. No, we do, for sure. And I shit my pants at altitude, at A Basin. To Canada again. Sim surprised me once more by keeping me on the team and sending me along with Lisa Vinciguerra, sending me along with Lisa Vinciguerra and seasoned pro / smooth talker Kevin Delaney to an invitational OP Pro event at Lake Louise near Banff, Canada. Delaney had been around the block and had accumulated a lot of sponsors, and he was making a constant living through snowboarding. He had all sorts of insight into the business aspect of snowboarding and was willing to share his knowledge. The overall moral of his story was, you got to start getting paid. At that time, I had a couple $1,000s in contest winnings in the bank. I thought I was rich. But Kevin Delaney, along with Andy Coughlin, taught me the prize money was only the beginning. They knew there was real money to be had in endorsements and didn't want to see me and other riders get taken advantage of. And I really appreciated their guidance and vowed to do the same for up-and-coming riders later on in my career. So yeah, Delaney was the ultimate, he took advantage of situations for his own, of course, he looked out for himself. It was great. Delaney was like, he's one of those dudes who had all kinds of sponsors before everyone else did. And, he was the shit, and he was a smooth talker, and he could definitely talk his way out of pretty much any situation or into any situation, which is, either way. I was beginning to see that I had a lot to learn both on and off the snow. If I was going to take this career role, I was beginning to see that I had a lot to learn both on and off the snow if I was going to take this career route. I realized how lucky I was to be able to make money off something that was so fun, but it would require some bona fide work along the way. I kept my ears open while on the road and learned as much in cars, buses, planes, and hotels rooms as I did on the mountain. There's always people. Just pay attention, man. This still goes for everyone now. Just keep your ears open. Listen to the older people talking. When we got to Banff in mid-April 1990, there were no affordable rooms available in the entire town. Since the trip had been put together at the last minute, Sims hadn't really been able to make us a reservation. Somehow, Delaney charmed a hotel receptionist into giving us a suite at a reduced rate. And this is at that big freaking castle-y hotel that's on Lake Louise. I don't know what it's called, but it's the big haunted place. So we didn't have a reservation anywhere, and it was really expensive to stay there. And the story goes on. Somehow, Delaney charmed a hotel receptionist into giving us a suite at a reduced rate. I don't know how he did it, considering our reputation in ski towns at that point. Snowboard teams had become known as hotel vandals and room thrashers, so a lot of places were on alert and suddenly all booked up when they saw our motley day-glow crews approaching the counter. Many team managers had to be creative when making reservations, saying such things as, "Could I please have a block of 10 rooms, ground level, smoking with a minibar? Hold that for the Washington Avenue Baptist Church. Thank you and God bless you." That was I think Eric put that in there. I don't know if they did that or not. But the hotels definitely were pretty wary. At Lake Louise, I started trusting myself with more speed and higher airs. Once I realized that more hang time was actually safer, it gave me more time to do the tricks and land better. I began to smooth out my style, which had been a little jerky before. With this newfound revelation, I grabbed 4th place and left with another $650. The OP Pro contests were known among riders as the OP Pro Free Money Giveaway Series. I think I talked about that in an earlier one, because they awarded cash up to 16th place. Finally, snowboarding was becoming lucrative. I hadn't been home in weeks, and I hadn't had a chance to spend any of the money I'd earned. My savings topped $3,000, more than I'd ever dreamed of in my entire life. Here's a picture. That's me at Mount Hood doing a gotcha photo shoot. And this jacket, if this picture was color, looked like you chopped up a Care Bear and smeared it all over a jacket. Do you know what a Care Bear is? Anyway. Next chapter. Life isn't always fair. This is when it gets heavy. So I'll try to keep it as uplifting as I possibly can, but this is like a turning point in my life. I returned to Paxton on April 10th thinking I was pretty damn cool. When I got home that night, I filled my parents in on my travels. The next afternoon, my on-again, off-again girlfriend, Carrie, who I'd been dating since college in Laconia, agreed to help shuttle me back to Vermont, where I left my car after the US Open. Yeah, that was a thing. Like, I left from Stratton and my car was there and I didn't really think about it, and I just kind of like left my car in Vermont for like a while. So I was getting a shuttle back up there from this girl I'd been dating. I somehow convinced her to drive to my house she was going to school somewhere else in Massachusetts, and was like, "Hey, can I get a ride to Vermont?" So I was taken up there to get my car. So here we go. My dad came home early from work just as we were leaving. He told me he felt pretty sick. I told my dad I had to go get my car, and he asked me to call my mom and tell her to come home from her. She had a telecommunication job at this point. She was doing sales for this company, and the hair salon, Hair Unlimited, had closed down. It turned into a part-time gig. My dad said he had this crazy pain in his knee that he'd never experienced before, but I thought it was just an old hockey injury. Then his nausea got worse and he started to throw up pretty violently. I asked him if there was anything I could do, but he said no, since my mom was on her way home to take care of him. So I left thinking that he had the flu. By the time Carrie dropped me off at my car, it was dark. So I hopped in, hoped it would start, because as you know, it had been sitting there for like a month at this point. It did. And I headed straight back to Paxton. And this next part of the book is, you can take this as you want. This is straight up happened to me, and it's a weird thing. It's a weird occurrence in my life, and I don't really have an explanation for it, but this happened exactly the way I'm going to read it to you in this book. In Gardner, Massachusetts, an hour from my house, I saw out of the corner of my eye a strange blue light flash on the side of the road. I glanced around and realized I was driving past a cemetery. By this time, I was used to driving on creepy New England roads, but this really turned a switch in me. 3 miles from my house, I saw more flashes, but these came from behind me and were accompanied by a shrieking siren. I pulled over and the ambulance roared by me. A weird sense of dread came over me, and I stepped on the gas, and I knew something was wrong at home. I came over the hill, the big hill that I used to have to skateboard down very fast, and I saw the ambulance pull into my driveway. And the way that this went down was like, I just got the chills just thinking about this. So I'm driving home, I get into my town, an ambulance comes behind me. For whatever reason, I think to follow the ambulance. And as I'm coming over the hill and I'm cresting down, I think to myself, he's gonna pull into my driveway. And that's exactly what happened. I came over the hill and saw the ambulance pulling into my driveway. I parked, ran inside, and found the paramedics in the kitchen trying to resuscitate my dad. I started to walk in, but my mom pulled me away. Then after a few minutes, we heard somebody say that he didn't have a pulse. My mom lost it and became hysterical. My mind couldn't process it all. I watched my mom getting into the ambulance with my dad, with him being lifted in on a gurney. As the ambulance took off, my dad's brother, my Uncle Ron, arrived and told me to get in the car. He put my hand on his shoulder as we drove to the hospital and said to me, "This doesn't look good." That night, April 11th, 1990, my dad died from a heart attack, which the doctor said was probably a result from a blood clot in his leg. He was only 46. And I'll tell you something crazy is it's weird to know that you outlived your dad. It's a weird thing. So, yeah. I don't think I reacted the way a kid should when he loses his dad, especially a dad he truly loves and cares for. I was sad, but kind of just pushed the grief aside. I wasn't like, oh God, my dad's dead, it's the end of the world. I think I was in shock. During the weeks after his funeral, my mom grieved enough for both of us. Seeing her in so much pain made me wonder, what am I supposed to feel? Am I broken because I don't feel the same way my mom does? At the same time, all I wanted to do was go snowboarding to escape the pain and sadness that I refused to let surface. I don't think I ever cried. I knew that my mom needed me, so I made a point to stay at home and help out as much as possible. It was a really tough time, and I've mostly blocked it out of my memory. For a couple weeks, my life consisted of hanging out with my mom and having meals together on a regular basis, which was something we'd never really done when my dad was around. Occasionally, I'd go skate someplace close to home, alone. I didn't really want to run into any friends because I didn't want to deal with them saying, "So how's everything going?" and me having to say, "Oh, my dad died." But I also didn't want to put the people who knew about my dad through awkward condolences either. I guess I just kind of needed to be alone for a while. Mickey called a week after my dad died and was very sympathetic. She told me how sorry she was, and then, as gently as possible, told me the reasons for calling. She said, I don't know what your deal is right now, and don't take this the wrong way, there's no pressure at all, but I wanted to let you know that there's a late season contest coming up at Arapahoe Basin if you're interested. Let me know. I wanted to say yes right there and then, but I really needed to feel the situation out with my mom. So one night at dinner, I told her about the contest. It was scheduled for May 12th, so I only had about a week before I was supposed to go. I was half scared to bring it up because I thought she might say something like, how can you even think about snowboarding right now? But I didn't really give her enough credit. She knew me better than I thought, and without hesitation said, you should go. I want you to go. Your dad would want you to go. And so on May 7th, I left for A Basin, Colorado for the Body Glove Pro. So just to kind of go back and go over the whole dad thing, I was such like a latchkey kid, and at that point, I was kind of just like, I don't know, like I didn't have the tightest relationship with my parents, and it's a really, like I know the people that have had parents pass away, it's a really weird thing to wrap your brain around, and I was in such shock, and it was just such a surreal experience. And I'm 50 years old and I'm still processing it. I think sometimes things will hit me. It hit me a lot harder when my kids were born. It made me kind of just really, I don't know, maybe kind of go back and reflect on some of the ways that I behaved as a kid growing up, because everything's temporary. And yeah, it was just, the only way, I didn't have an outlet, and I was I didn't really wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I was so inward with everything, with skating and all this stuff. And I was an only child that my only outlet was to go and skate or go and snowboard, and had this internal fight with, is that okay? And then when I would go, this is right when Zero Gravity opened up in Nashua, New Hampshire. There's a skateboard park there that I spent a lot of time at, right around that point in my life. I remember going there and just feeling like everybody knew that my dad died, and everyone was going to treat me weird, or everyone was treating me weird, or didn't want to, it's like, but no one knew. It was all my weird internal craziness. So yeah, things like that, not everyone processes it the same, that's for sure. So I don't really know where I was going with that, just kind of sounding it out. Back in action. With a summit of 13,500 feet, Arapahoe Basin in the Colorado Rockies is the highest resort in North America. In the east, I never needed to worry about elevation issues like dehydration and sun intensity. In fact, I don't think I ever used sunscreen in my life. Back home, my dad used to put baby oil on us when we went skiing in the spring so we could get nice and bronzed. I believe he would say, get some color on your face. But in Colorado, altitude sickness and sunburns are pretty damn common among out-of-state visitors. The contest took place during 3 or 4 of the sunniest days in Colorado's history, and I got the sunburn to prove it. It all started when Scott Upside Downy took Chris Swires and I free-riding at A Basin, pointing out all the mogul fields, the cornices, and the rocks to jump off, all above tree line. We were riding east wall, strictly, and it was like slushy, there wasn't like a friggin' cloud in the sky that day. The contest took place during 3 or 4 of the sunniest days in Colorado's history, as far as I was concerned. I read that. Sims hired Trevor Graves to come along and shoot photos of us riding the newest Sims snowboards. This was right when Sean Palmer got his very first pro model. Well, the shape for his first pro model. The first pro model he got on Sims was the Clown, maybe? I think it was the Clown. But anyway, this was the precursor to that board. It was like the same shape and everything. We were getting ready to jump off this rock near the east wall when Matty Goodman rode up and told me to put on some sunscreen because I was looking pretty red. I ignored him. So this was like, I had ridden with Matt Goodman and Ken Block months before when we went to the Copper contest, and I ran into these guys again at A Basin, which was pretty fun. I continued to get fried when I started to feel dizzy. I went into the lodge to get a drink of water, and I was standing inside the entrance when I saw Craig Kelly walking up the steps. Craig was the world champion, and I was still a starstruck fan at heart. As he went by, even though I figured he wouldn't really recognize me because why would he? He was Craig Kelly Super Pro and I was just some weird little kid from Massachusetts. I said, "Hi, Craig," and as casually as possible. He turned, looked at me. Craig was like freaking Clint Eastwood at that point. Like, he was just so cool. He turned, looked at me, and with just the right amount of cool composure said, "Hey, TR." And in doing so, he gave me the nickname that would stick throughout my entire career. Yeah, Craig was the first one to ever use my initials to label me. It's pretty funny. It's pretty crazy. There's plenty of TRs out there. There's Travis Rice and all these other dudes. But Craig called me TR, and that was pretty cool. As far as I was concerned, that was a major fucking event in my life. Late that afternoon, altitude sickness and sun poisoning hit Chris Swires, Trevor Graves, and me like a Mack truck. We could barely climb the 5 stairs into the condo, and when we did, we just plopped onto the floor and moaned. And there's more to that story too. We were staying in this condo that was, actually, I think we were on like the 3rd floor. We for sure were on the 3rd floor because we got locked out of the condo and we were so sick. We were just like, fried, just barbecued beef jerky human beings, just completely devoid of any moisture and just beet red. And we get to the door and the door is locked and we can't get in, and all we want to do is just like lay down and drink water. So I decide that I'm going to scale the outside balconies to get up to our 3rd floor because I know for a fact that no one has locked the sliding door. So I'm like climbing up the outside of this building to climb up onto one person's balcony, look in and see if there's no one there, reach up, kind of like jump up and grab the next balcony. Yeah, it's fucking sketchy. Where was I here? As the night wore on, Trevor began to puke his guts out to the point of dry heaves, while blisters started to form on my face, ears, and neck. The next morning, my nose was a ball of leaky pus, but all 3 of us had to drag ourselves out of bed for the contest. I drank a gallon of water and tried to rehydrate and practice in the pipe. By Colorado standards, the pipe conditions sucked. "Be careful," Brad Stewart warned. "This thing's super icy." "Are you kidding me?" I said. "I'm from the East Coast. This thing is perfect." It was hard, but it wasn't like East Coast hard. Halfway down the right side of the pipe, there was a big tombstone of snow that Andy Hetzel was doing huge air to fakies off of while wearing a cool 7-Eleven store uniform, paying tribute to the snowboarder's main nutrition source at that time. Andy he actually put it up on his Instagram like 2 days ago. Andy Hetzel got a cover from that day, and he's doing like a melon fakie on the backside wall. Yeah, and he got a cover. It's pretty cool. Below the hit was this huge unrideable snow boulder that was kind of just like smashed into the wall of the pipe. So I went smaller on the tombstone hit the snow boulder that everyone else avoided, and stalled out Andrek hand plants on top of it. And that would be that picture right there. That's the Andrek snow boulder. I saw a couple people try and hit the boulder after I did, but no one could pop up there like I did. It was like they'd run into a brick wall, and I knew I'd found my ace in the hole for the contest. It was nice to have a little bit of confidence because my stomach was grumbling and I felt like lying down in the snow and just going to sleep. The boulder and my hand plants served me well. By this time, I'd made the finals, and I had a lot of gas from the altitude sickness and was polluting the air around the starting area. To top it off, the event was being televised, which was a pretty big deal in those days. The World Championships in Breck had been on television earlier that year, but the camera crews were still a pretty rare sight back then. At this event, most riders, myself included, were acutely aware of these big cameras that were constantly trained on us. And here's what I later watched. Me poised in the starting gate for the finals. The camera zooms in on my severely charred face, And the voiceover says, and the voiceover I believe was Todd Harris, my partner in crime in the Olympics and all these other events. Harris has been announcing snowboard contests forever. Here we have Todd Richards from Paxton, Massachusetts, riding for Sims. I then look around briefly while I'm in the start gate. Then I stop, stare upward into space for a moment, and with a look of confusion, my face wrinkles up into a grimace. This was the exact second that I shit my pants on live TV. I just blew up. I spackled the inside of my magic purple jumpsuit. The announcer said go, and I didn't have a choice. I dropped in and dealt with the load in my pants. It's still a good thing that I semi-black out during my runs, or I might have realized that my pants were filled with poop soup, and the tweaks and hand plants were really spreading the love, so to speak. Despite the gross factor, I landed my run, pulled all my tricks, and straight lined it to the bathroom. 100% true. I shit my pants just as they said go. And it was a full shotgun blast of dirty dishwater in my underwear. Pardon me if I just really offended you, but it was bad. And I did a full contest run with poopy pants. Despite the gross factor, I pulled all my tricks and straight lined it to the bathroom. I was a mess. I had to take my boots and my pants off and wipe my ass with the leg sections of my long underwear because the ass section was pure mud. After my cleanup, I just threw them in the trash. I got back to the pipe to find out that Kevin Delaney had won, Craig Kelly had taken second, Sean Palmer took third, Andy Hetzel fourth, and I had become the first snowboarder to take fifth place in Mud is Drawers on national television. The story was too funny not to share with a few close friends, which eventually became a few hundred friends, and eventually I was inducted into Jeff Brushy's prestigious Team Dookie. Team Dookie was a thing that we had back in the day in the East Coast, and I will tell you the story of how Team Dookie came to be. Brushy had coined the phrase after sharing a story about how he had been pushed through a wall of sheetrock when he was younger. They were at some party and they got in a fight. Dude, this guy pushed me so hard, I went through the wall and this little piece of dookie came out. And that's what gave them the idea for Team Dookie. Team Dookie required the obvious for membership, and all the Burlington kids, as well as Craig Kelly, had at one time shit their pants and become a member. We all put Team Dookie sticker on our boards, and that same year, Burton came out with a video called Chill, in which there's an interview where you can hear Jason Ford in the background chanting, Team Dookie goes hard. I returned home on May 15th and felt semi-normal again. I still couldn't feel the void left by my dad's passing, but snowboarding had kind of just pushed it off to the side. I wasn't ready for the season to end, but on the East Coast, summer was in full swing. The snow had melted out at our low altitude resorts, and I turned to skateboarding. So that was part 9, and I'll get back on these again. It took a little bit of motivating. I got kind of stuck. So yeah, that's how I shit my pants, and tomorrow we'll have some more really fun talk. I don't think I ever shit my pants again in a snowboard contest. See you guys tomorrow.